Rhonda, thank you very much for that introduction and for the welcome to all of us at this last training session for the summer of 2022. And as soon as I have my act together of showing the screen on which I have expanded my slide presentation, then I will begin. So let me try that again. It worked in rehearsal. Why is it not working now?
And David, would you mind just giving us maybe a 60-second introduction of yourself? I know my introduction does no justice, but feel free to give us a little more insight into who you are, whether it's in Toastmasters and or outside of Toastmasters.
Well, thank you very much, Rhonda. I appreciate that opportunity. First question I have for all of you is, do you see my screen with a notice of recording?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
That is what the task included. Well, I'm delighted to be here. I've been a member of District 38 now for quite a while, and I really have, in the recent years, come to discover more and more about what the district and its officers do for us. In a way, I was living on my little island of club member, having a good old time with my club members, having a good old time giving speeches, reaching levels, getting ribbons and awards. And I didn't realize there was a world out there waiting for me to explore, discover. And so I'm glad that I did. And I've worked with district officers now for 2 or 3 years on various tasks. And I have come to find the importance of the connection with the district and the district website to being a better Toastmaster. Oh, I've been a Toastmaster for a while, but as I mentioned, living on my little island, looking just around me at the one tree here and one tree there, when in fact there's a whole forest out there at Toastmasters International's website, designed by people who hate Toastmasters because it is so complicated. But by District 38, which has a very friendly, open, and informative website. I am a distinguished Toastmaster. Actually, I told my timer at the last meeting, don't time me, which is what DTM stands for, actually. I am engaged in 2 clubs, the Carlisle Community Toastmasters Club, created 3.5 years ago here in Carlisle. And I'm a member of the Now Hear This Club in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, a club that has been on the Navy base, but off because of COVID for a while, for maybe 5, 6, 7, or 8 years. I've competed in contests, gracefully lost, a couple of times won, but always enjoyed being a Toastmaster at the club level, at the area level, the division and the district level. I urge all of you who are officers in your club to, as time permits, discover what the area, division, and district can do for you, for your club, and lo and behold, for your new members. The wealth is out there for us to pluck and use. At the end of my presentation, the penultimate slide will be resources that I recommend or suggest or propose you may want to look at. These resources may help you to be a more informative officer dealing with new members, but also with current members. So there's the title of my presentation as assigned by District 38. It's a filler for some of the areas the district felt could use some additional attention this training year. There's an agenda, which one always has to have, and we follow the agenda pretty much. Nonetheless, the substance and the contents are far more important to the agenda listing. And I believe Rhonda will make the entire presentation available for download from the district website at some time, because I will send this presentation to the district once I've completed it today, unless I receive lots of thumbs down indicating, maybe we should just trash this presentation and move on to something else. Rule number 1, make sure new and all members feel welcomed. We don't always do that. You know, we fail sometimes by not even acknowledging the email message routed from Toastmasters International saying, this potential member has discovered you on our website. Can you get a hold of him or her? And they give you a name and a phone number and an email address, and we blithely ignore that. Okay, well, let's say we did not ignore it. Let's say we brought attention to that member, and that person has now joined our club. So what do we do next? We welcome them, and we make sure they feel appreciated. They're part of our club, part of our life, part of our Toastmasters experience, which we will share with them as time goes on. All organizations have a mission and value statement. I will quickly go over it for us, but I'm confident that you could all recite it with me, just like we can recite things we learned in grammar school. There's the mission. There are the core values, 4 of them. Now, Rhonda asked us all during the last session of training if we knew what they were. And most of us did. Not all of us did in the order in which Toastmaster puts them out, but order is less important than knowing them. And there's the club mission. This is where you as a club officer come in. This is what you look at and create and develop and generate for your club. And of course, for the new members coming in, as well as the old members who provided you the stability for the past months or years or decades. Some clubs in our district, by the way, are very old. I believe we have one at least 60 years old. The Carlisle Club, as I mentioned, 3.5. We're babies, but we're good. The question you would ask a newcomer, phrased perhaps delicately or differently, is why you want to join us? What's in it for you to come to us? What is your motivation? Did your boss say, John, you need to improve your public speaking and leadership skills. I know the place where you can do this. Toastmasters International. Reach out, they'll make you a champion. Or I have a neighbor who's a Toastmaster, and I love the way the neighbor is so eloquent, thoughtful, sentences well structured. And that neighbor never says, because we have erased those filler words from that person's vocabulary. But the second question you ask a new member is, all right, you're a Toastmaster. You've told us why you joined, but what is it that you wish to accomplish? And the you is the critical piece. Not what do we want as officers or club members want you to accomplish. What do you want to accomplish? Keep that in your mind always. And so in order to do that, we have to ask the question, how can we help you meet your goals? Well, we assume we know what those are because we asked you. Now, a new member won't know many of the tools available to reach those goals. This is why an informed officer or an informed member comes in very handy. Do you want to have your own time frame, or shall we nudge you along or push you along or order you along? You know, some structured clubs like to tell members who's taking what role when. It depends on the club. But a new member needs to feel welcomed and enthusiastically encouraged, not shoved or pushed. And pay attention to the reply. How the new member answers your question helps you determine how you then and the other members of the club and the other officers will help that member travel that path. All right, now that we've done that, new member, let me tell you, how do we run our club meetings? Oh, I understand, not every club runs the same way, but that's all right. There's an essential structure, and the structure goes as follows. We have people who give prepared speeches. We have people who give the answers to questions in impromptu ways. Impromptu, it comes from Latin. I didn't know about this question coming to me is what it means in Latin, although Latin is a much shorter language, one word. Evaluation and feedback, a key to success in Toastmaster meetings, how we evaluate, which is a completely different lesson for officer training or member training of its own. But the point to make is, and one of our members made this just last week, if you're working for someone and your office manager says to you, David, time for your annual review. And you sit down with that person and the person says, you know, last November, you did this very well. I wanted to tell you. You nod. But you know, in March, when I asked you for this task, you were 2 hours late. I would have liked to know that at the time, is my internal answer to that kind of office manager. The evaluation process we have in Toastmasters gives you instant feedback, instant support, instant counseling and advice. And that's what helps us become better Toastmasters, better speakers, and better leaders. Oh, and we have to have business, of course. Talk about membership renewals, talk about club success plans, about district dollars and how we can spend them. So there are many things you can discuss in a business. You can start your meeting with a business. You can have impromptu speeches before prepared speeches. I heard a club once run an agenda of evaluations, then speeches, then impromptu, then business. And the way the structure was set for that particular club at that meeting was, I'm going to evaluate your speech, and now you must deliver that speech to fit the evaluation. Clever. I haven't tried that, but it's a novel way of doing it. Then you can explain to the new member briefly, perhaps more so than I'm doing tonight, what these roles are and what you recommend as a seasoned Toastmaster or a senior officer in your club, what these roles are. I won't dwell on them very long because that, again, is a different training program, what each person does at a meeting. But you have a Toastmaster. Some people call that person the Toastmaster of the day. You have a speaker, a topics master, those who are grabbed by the throat and have to answer these questions, table topics speaker. A general evaluator, it's not a military rank, it's just a structure in the meeting. Speech evaluators fill out little forms, tell the person how well and where some areas could perhaps be done differently to enhance that person's progress. Counter. Yes, the filler word bit. A grammarian. Do we speak English in our community the way we wish to have English spoken? My mother was British. She would bristle at me now for hearing me speak, if nothing else for my accent. Can't help it. And a timer. And this is where the timer's role is important, because somebody is going to soon wave a red flag at me, suggesting, David, you're overdue. These are the roles outlined, and I will not delay on these because we all know what they are, but they're important. And they're important for the new member to understand briefly what the role consists of. There are magnificent Toastmaster provided guidelines for each of the meeting roles, and you should download that. I'll show it to you at the end of the presentation. So Toastmasters 1, don't do it right away. That's fine, it's good advice. Speaker, speak soon, speak well, but speak comfortably. Topics master, you are the one asking the questions or posing the challenges to your members. Table topics speaker, you're the one who answers. You can deflect, by the way, if club rules permit. You ask me question A, I'm not comfortable with question A, so I'll answer question B while acknowledging all the time that you asked me question A. But I will do it nicely, politely, in a Toastmaster way. The general evaluator, you've all done that. You know what it does. An evaluator, important role. There's also great guidance on the websites of Toastmasters on evaluation. And I believe on the district also on how to be an effective and positive and supportive evaluator. Counter, that's a non-threatening role for the member taking on that position. You're counting the deficiencies and filler words of members. And at the report time, when you have to give the answers, you can code it softly and say, I've heard this, I've heard that. But you're not challenged to give a long speech before members before you're ready. Grammarian, some people are less comfortable with that because colloquialism, vernaculars, vocabulary, grammar is different in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. But once again, your new member needs to know there is a grammarian. It's a role that is not overly challenging. It's a supporting role, but a useful role. Timer. You can use lights, you can use cards, you can use waving. Whatever mechanism your club uses is most likely the correct one, but the member needs to understand the concept of timing. Now, we need to tell the new member of pathways, and we're not going to tell them about the 11 and the 5 and the 75 elective courses you can take. Way too much information for the new member. But conceptually, you have 11 paths you can choose, and you can choose all 11 or 1 or 2. And each of those develops certain kinds of skills depending on where you want to go. So as officers, it's useful for us to know where these go. And so sometimes by looking at the pathways charts, we can figure out, oh, this new member wants to excel in this particular aspect. Oh, this is the pathway that I suggest the member may wish to follow. A coach can help at the club level accessing the Toastmasters International's website and go ahead and follow a path. There they are. And I'll pass quickly because, again, all of us here know what they are. But to have them in your head or on a piece of paper when you speak to new members is very useful. This is important in my judgment. We need to let new members advance at their own pace. Yet we need to encourage them. And the trick as leaders of clubs is to know the difference. If we harass members in ways they find offensive, they'll vote with their feet or with their unpaid dues. If we let them navigate blithely, they may not progress. The combination of encouragement, prodding, calling, or guiding is what helps a new member begin to progress in pathways and in the ways of improving speaking and leadership skills. We had a member, Carlisle, a charter member 3.5 years ago, who said to me, David, all I want to do is give speeches. All this pathway stuff and not interesting to me. That member is now trying to achieve level 5. Well, you'll say 3.5 years is a long time to reach level 5. I was a Toastmaster for 20 years before I made DTM. Time is not critical. Effort and support are. You have a coach who knows a lot about the pathways and the Toastmasters websites. Have that person walk through with the new member to become somewhat comfortable with the, I think, somewhat complicated at times, Toastmasters International website. I hope Toastmasters isn't listening because they'll be cross with me. Send the new member an email of welcome. Phrase it the way your club would phrase it. Phrase it the way you think you'd like to hear it, or alternatively, phrase it the way you think the member would like to hear it. You are welcome. We are delighted that you have joined us, and you can participate in this group activity with individual personal achievements. That's what we do. Try to make sure that your new member acknowledges it so you have a complete lock on communication. I have sent out many messages in a different environment that went to people's spam boxes. Now, maybe they did it on purpose, who knows? Nonetheless, if you're emailing to your new member and the new member is not receiving your message, you have not communicated. And in Toastmasters, we are, by excellence, communicators. Have a club coach, the person who's technically comfortable and competent with both Toastmasters.org and Pathways and Basecamp, talk and walk through those with a new member, and have somebody else or the same person go through either Easy Speak or Free Toast Host or whatever mechanism or website your club may use to schedule roles and schedule meetings. If you don't use any website, then you can skip that particular function. And inform the new member that this is the first project in every single path taken. And what that is a comfortable sitting back in an armchair next to your friend saying, you know, I was born and so forth and so on, or I went to school here and so forth, or chronologically, years by years, or my degrees are, or my job is, or my family is, whatever 4 to 6 minutes allow you to present yourself in a way, new member, you want to tell us about who you are. The member has to be comfortable that there is no, as far as I know, structured icebreaker way of doing it, or doing it right. Doing it right is the way that successfully lets the new member give a speech, receive an evaluation, and inform the club members about that particular one. This is important as well. Some clubs do this marvelously, others not so well, I'm told. And if you don't have face-to-face meetings, awards and recognitions may be perhaps more difficult to do. Oh, but not impossible. The two clubs in which I am a member, for example, send out every year a birthday certificate to new members, to all members, as they reach a birthday of being a Toastmaster, no matter if it's in this club or another club. So if you join Toastmasters International on September the 1st of some year, you will receive from our club, assuming you're a member of our club, a certificate signed by the president congratulating you on many, many, many years of membership in Toastmasters International. Small recognition, but it's an acknowledgement that I appreciate and value your membership. Then we have other things we can do. You can get these ribbons from Toastmasters International when their website shop is back up again using district dollars, and give those, or other forms of recognition. If you can do them face-to-face and hand them physically to the new member, it's much better than posting it on a Zoom screen. The impact is quite different. I'm sure you can appreciate that. At the Toastmasters International level, the recognition is posted on the website and can be downloaded and extracted by your VPE, your secretary, or your president. All three of those officers have full access to all this data, which they can make available to the members or teach the member, the new member, or the seasoned member, where to reach for those kinds of certifications. Mentoring. Mentoring to me is walking alongside a new member or a member as that member wants to go where that member wants to go. It's not telling the member, but it's supporting the member and supporting the efforts that member wishes to put in and advance in Toastmastering. Now, coaching is different. Coaching to me is simply, you need to learn how to use Easy Speak, for example, to schedule your meetings and schedule your speeches. All right, let's have a meeting on that, and I will talk you through how it's done. And when you're comfortable with that, my coaching is done. Mentoring is a little different. I will walk with you at least for 6 months. And then if you want to release me and say, I've got it, you're good. If you want to continue walking with me as you proceed on your paths, I'll be happy to do so and share my experience with you, share my stories with you of how I dealt with issues, overcame challenges, or managed my progression in Toastmasters. Quite different roles, both important. It's nice to mention leadership opportunities, and I have this slide on here because it does show the progression of club, area, division, and district. However, I think when a new member joins the club, this may be more information that that new member needs. Understanding the existence of club, area, division, and district could be useful, but looking at the roles may be reserved for later in that member's progression. It is part of leadership, which is part of what we do in Toastmasters, but it's perhaps at the early stage of membership a little bit overwhelming. What are your club expectations and policies? Do you have any? What is the club climate or culture? Do you actually fine people for not coming to meetings? Do you admonish people for being late at meetings? Are there some topics or subjects that are taboo? Whatever they may be, if you have certain culture norms in your club, it is important that your new member take those, understand those, and participate in keeping those. Some clubs may have very rigid sets of rules and cultures. Others may have more relaxed. Whatever the culture of the club in which this new member is coming, in which you are now welcoming this new member, the new member needs to know what they are. And, you know, most of us probably didn't even look at the addendum of our standard club charter. It's interesting. How do we communicate with new members? Let me count the ways. They're varied. whichever works the best is the best way to communicate with a member. And as I mentioned, communication is a two-way. If you reach out to someone and never hear back, then half the communication is not successful. Make it successful somehow. If someone never answers your emails, try a text message or a phone call. Now, if eventually the member tells you that he or she is no longer interested, that's different. But if it's just failure of communication, wasn't there a movie about that? Paul Newman. What we have here is a failure of communication. Great film. If your club has websites, Facebook, newsletters, use those and use those to advertise with the permission of the new member, the presence of the new member among your club. A few to-do lists for the new member. I won't go through all of them, but since you can have these slides later on, if you want to go back and look or take a screenshot, these are steps that may be useful for your new member to take as they begin their journey in your club. Look at the websites, District 38 and Toastmasters.org. Here are the resources I promised I would share with you. And I've gone through all of them. I made sure that the listing I'm giving you reflects the current date of issue, because to my horror, I discovered that in my files on my computer, I had some out-of-date documentation. Rhonda mentioned the new club success plan. I did have the 22-page one and I embraced it and I said, I'm going to do this with my colleagues and my friends and we're going to make this great plan of 22 pages, and found out that we only had 11 pages. So I updated it, and the Distinguished Club program date is 2022. And every one of these pamphlets you see here has the date printed on it. I have now exhausted my voice and probably your ears, and so I will now yield to questions if you wish. Thank you.
There were a few questions in chat. I tried to address those. If there were any that I did not address appropriately, please let us know at this time.
I'm just waiting for my dog to settle down. I have a question about just members that are not very engaging. What are some unique ways that you can get members that may take a role but just won't go any further than that?
Well, I guess that addresses what I was saying earlier, Tahira, and we have to walk at the pace of the member. You recall my story about the member who joined us 3.5 years ago, said, I'm just giving a few speeches, none of this other Mickey Mouse stuff. Self-motivation can come from seeing others achieve, and the recognition the club gives to those who achieve levels can be encouraging for people as well. Trying to explain to a member that that member's contribution to level achievement helps the club's success plan, which helps the area success, division success, and district success. If you go and look at the district success stories, which is another one of these incomprehensible websites maintained by Toastmasters, you can see how many clubs are president distinguished, or I forget the other categorization. If you can show your new member or the member who is somewhat slow in participating, the value added that you and your contribution, as minor as it may be in your mind, is to overall efforts the district is making, that sometimes is a motivator. Motivation is a funny thing. We've had people drop out of Toastmasters, some saying, well, I don't do Zoom. I'm tired of being on screen, so goodbye. And we've had other members saying, I can't do face-to-face meetings. So we cannot give those members the physical recognition, the embrace, not necessarily physically, because we have to do elbow bumps or fist bumps now. Nonetheless, various ways of encouraging and showing the member, the new member or the non-participating member, the value that person can bring to the club's life. And that to me is a very compelling argument. Look what you can do for us as well as what we can do for you. You can give someone a good evaluation and make that member feel good about himself or herself. I hope that's of some use.
Excellent use. Yes, exactly what I was looking for. Thank you so much.
And for those of you, I know many of you are asking, where can I find the Toastmaster join dates? So as club officers, you all have access to Club Central. Go into Club Central, and when you download the roster, it should give you some parameters on each of your members, including the date that they joined Toastmasters and joined the club.
Indeed, Rhonda, thank you for saying that. I think many of us in our infancy of being officers in clubs aren't aware of the tools available on the Toastmasters website as well as the district website. And I have the good fortune, I will say, that I am now retired from working for pay. I no longer work for pay, although sometimes people thought I was paid for not working, but that's a whole different story. Nonetheless, I have more time available to me. And so I can spend time going on the Toastmasters website and hunting around for things. Just today, for example, someone wanted to know, what is the project checklist for this project I wish to engage in on my path? Well, I happen to have that form, or those two forms, on my computer. And because they're listed in plain English, I quickly copied those two forms and I emailed them to the member. And so Tahira, sometimes that kind of a timely, positive, easy response, rather than saying, look it up on the internet, because that is a giveaway for disaster. If you're able to have some of the core information at your fingertips, you are another one of the officers, and you're able to instantly, by that I mean within the 24-hour period, reasonably answer a member's question. That, I think, also is part of motivation.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.